The focus text for my message this morning is actually the 1 Samuel reading, so you might want to hold that handy as we unpack it under the sermon title, Nightlight. So now may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable unto you, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. That funny paper's favorite, Charlie Brown, had a way of cutting to the chase. He's standing outside in the first frame of a cartoon, peering into the heavens with his frenemy, Lucy Van Pelt. You know, one of those so-called friends that often behaves like an enemy. Ever the sober realist, Charlie breaks the silence in the next frame as they stand together staring into the starry night. He says, "It always looks darkest before it gets totally black." From my vantage point, I have to say, things have been dark and edging toward black lately. Like Lucy and Charlie, I reflected together with a parishioner last Sunday, days after the acts of extremism in Paris. My conversation partner mused, "This year didn't start out too well. Truer words have hardly been spoken." And as I read this week about 10,000 troops deployed across France, the foiled possible further terrorism in Belgium, I also took note of the relentless violence in Nigeria. The newspaper I read said that people have been slaughtered like insects. In other words, as horrible as the killing spree was in Paris, the atrocities going on in that African country are of an exponentially greater magnitude. Mind you, this is no contest a country should want to win. So no, 2015 didn't start out too well. And to that self-evident truth, I might add 2014 didn't end so well either. Wars escalated in more than one region of the world. Syria and the Ukraine are examples. Killings occurred in different parts of our own country, igniting racial tensions that clearly had been simmering just below the surface. Polarization in our public discourse continues to stymie dialogue and compromise. And oh, did I mention? The Ebola virus threatened to spread across West Africa. So the world is dark indeed. And it seems to be getting darker. We hesitate to utter what is going through our minds. Could this be the beginning of the end? Are we at the point of no return? I know it's going on in the dark spaces of your hearts because I hear you mention it. And a numbness starts to set in. Problems seem so vast. The issues are so complex now, and the causes for discord are far-reaching and difficult to unwind. Potential solutions that anyone suggests seem only to fuel more controversy and disagreement, and in some cases leads to more violence. Is the jig really up? Are things so bad that black is all that's left? In order to respond to such a notion, I invite you to the world of our first reading, sometime before 1000 BC in the world of the Judges. It is a period in which the wandering tribes of Israel arrive in the promised land, and lo and behold, they discover the people are already living there. The books of Joshua and Judges tell the story of the Israelites' occupation from different vantage points. In Joshua's version, the military victories are swift and violent and decisive according to God's will for God's chosen people. Judges, however, paints a different picture. Perhaps, I dare say, a more realistic one. In Judges, the Israelites' infiltration is far from seamless. There are tribal leaders named judges who become filled with the Spirit of God for a time, and they do some courageous things, but often they have fatal flaws that cause their downfall. What's more, the judges and the people they lead do not always play well with others. In fact, even with people that are supposed to be on their team. By the end of the book of Judges, we're aware of tensions between nations and tensions within nations. And we're horrified by gang rapes, murders, and ultimately a call for civil war. Go back to the book of Judges. It's right there in the Bible. The summary lines that bring this book to a climax and close sound eerily contemporary. We read phrases like, "Such a thing has never happened in Israel. And everybody did what was right in their own eyes." In other words, life had devolved into chaos, selfishness, anarchy, darkness, moving inexorably toward black. It seems to me the book of Judges is like a metaphorical playbook for the place we find ourselves today. For just as we lament over the state of the world, as the era of Judges ends and our 1 Samuel reading begins, Israel is at its nadir. It has hit bottom, seemingly beyond hope. Yes, we human creatures have felt this way before. Notice how the text of 1 Samuel images the desperate straits of Israel. To begin, we're introduced to Hannah's young son named Samuel, who's been dedicated to God and brought to minister with longtime established priest Eli. But then, what do we learn is the situation in the temple. Well, do you remember how that reading began? The word of God was rare in those days, and vision was not widespread. And Eli, the priest and presumed representative of God, why, his eyesight is so dim that he could no longer see. This isn't physical blindness, my friends. This is spiritual blindness. The world is corrupt. The priesthood is corrupt. Evil abounds, and all that Eli and all the status quo can see is blackness. And it's into this